Good morning. We'll call the Kaneohe County Health and Human Services Committee to order. And our agenda today will be largely on corrections. But before we do that, we will, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last.
I will so move.
Commissioner Nissen moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Seemed like it was in doubt there for.
That's somebody else's.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, so Tammy Jo or Crystal, I don't know who's gonna do this, but or maybe both. Welcome.
We're both going to do it this morning.
Welcome.
So, Tammy Jo Lieberg, Director, Kaneohe Community Corrections. We are going to talk about evidence-based practices this morning, and specifically cognitive restructuring and recognizing risk. So, I'm going to start, and then I'll finish, but I'm going to have Crystal actually walk through a little bit of what we do with the individuals we work with that are justice involved. So, this graph here is one you've seen before. We've talked about it a couple times. When my staff are working with offenders that are in the criminal justice system, our evidence-based practices are really based on 8 principles. The idea of we need to identify their risk and needs. We use actuarial assessments to identify those risk and needs that we've presented to you before. We want to enhance motivation. We use motivational interviewing to try and get people to come alongside us and understand that changing their behavior is more important to them, as important to them as it is to us, because we know that if somebody doesn't want to change, it becomes more difficult. And then we start doing targeted interventions, skill practice, and looking at positive reinforcement. And that's really what we're talking about, cognitive restructuring. So Crystal's going to kind of walk you through some of the exercises we do, and then we're going to come back and talk about it a little bit more in depth.
Good morning. Crystal.
Good morning.
Roloff. Crystal Roloff, Deputy Director with Kaneohe County Community Corrections. And I'm going to take you through a few pieces that I go through with or have gone through with offenders, just to give you an idea of the cognitive restructuring that we do on a one-on-one basis with clients when they come in. So on your screen, you'll see it's an iceberg analogy. And so it's a really good icebreaker, if you will, when you talk with offenders to say, tell me about an iceberg. What do you know about it? And they know that it's cold, it's big, it's not movable. And they say, well, what part do you see? Well, you see the tip of it, right? What part? And then a lot of times they'll get around to, well, it sinks the Titanic. Okay. So then I draw a pen across the top. And so what part sunk the Titanic? Is it the tip of the iceberg? No. It's what's underneath it that took out the bottom of the Titanic. And then our people are very visual people. And so then you can relate that to your actions. The only part that I see or know about this client at that point is their action, what brought them there, right? Their offense. And so it's a really good opportunity for me to say, but you are way more than your offense, right? You're full of thoughts, you're full of feelings, you're full of beliefs, you're a person. So what we need to work on probation is, yes, there's the action, but what is underneath it that sinks the Titanic is what we need to talk about. Usually I have some pretty good buy-in by that time. So we can do that in a number of ways. One of the programs, the oldest program I guess that we've had is Thinking for a Change. So we have 6 agents that are trained in Thinking for a Change. What you're seeing now is the program organizer, if you will. So there's a lot of different things that picture can say. When we start that program with clients, we ask them to tell us, what do you see on that? And I don't know, after teaching for how many years, I don't know that we've ever had the same answers. People see many different things, and more predominantly you see a conflict, and then you see a new way to think and a light bulb. So parts of Thinking for a Change, it's a 25-session course. It teaches social skills, how our thinking controls our behavior, and problem solving. And so that we can do in a group setting, and typically we've had female groups and male groups separate, because everyone's thinking is different. We need to respect that. But we can also take these pieces and translate them when they're done or in between into individual client appointments. And a way that we can do that is with a thinking report. And that's going to be the next one. So if I were to have an offender that, say, tested positive or got into a fight with a family or a relative or got into some trouble, we can walk them through a thinking report so they can see what led up to that behavior. So we always start with all their words that are exactly coming out of their mouth, but we start with the situation. And the situation is always going to be a fact, the facts about the situation. Well, in my example for Jim's thinking report, he was on electronic monitoring and he was out of the area. So he got a violation for that. This doesn't have to be anything major. It doesn't have to be anything you're returning to court for, but it has to address some risky behavior that can get them into further trouble. Or it can be a bigger thing. So it can be modified to be whatever they need. So in this case, the facts were that he was in trouble for being out of the area. So then I say, okay, well, what led up to being out of the area? What were you thinking before you left the area? And then it's really important to list their thoughts, exactly how they're saying it, because that's what's real in their mind. So his thinking was, I know that if I do these things, I will be going back to jail. It's really hard, or starting to get to me. I feel locked up in my own apartment. I really resent this. I shouldn't have to follow these rules. Maybe it'd be just better to go back to jail and just serve my time, my sentence, get it over with. I feel like I'm not in charge of my life anymore and I can't stand it. Well, you can tell the first couple always are just really shallow, but if you push to 10 or more, you start getting into, okay, what's really driving that behavior? What thoughts are behind it? So next you'd ask, okay, what feelings do you feel when you have those thoughts? And Jim was able to identify uncomfortable, angry, controlled, and threatened. So then we push a little bit further and say, okay, now let's talk about what attitudes and beliefs drive those thoughts and those feelings. An attitude and belief is something that we can take across situations. So it's going to be like you only live once, or blood is thicker than water. Jim was able to identify nobody has the right to control my life, and if I let them do this to me, I'm a chump. Those were attitudes and beliefs. So then you tell Jim, okay, so if you were on electronic monitoring and you're having these thoughts and you feel this way and you have these attitudes and beliefs, did you give yourself any choice but to leave the area? 9 times out of 10, they're going to leave, right? If they stay in that thinking. And so when they start to see the visual of, wow, I talked myself into it, that's where you kind of can go into, so what was the riskiest thought that told you to leave? And then on the right hand of the screen, his riskiest thought was, I can't stand it. I can't stand it anymore. All right, so what was the riskiest attitude and belief that said leave? And that was, nobody has the right to control my life. Okay, well, you've been on the monitor now for 90 days. You got another 90 to go. And this is your first violation. What have you told yourself to get through the first 90 days? And then that's where you get the new thinking. And he was telling himself on the 90 days before when he was doing well, it's only a short amount of time. I don't want to go to jail and I can do this. Yeah, you did it for 90 days, and this is what you were telling yourself to help you be successful. What attitude and belief goes with that? Well, in his mind, people can change and probation can help. Wow, you did it for 90 days, so you build on a success, and then you go back to, okay, you're feeling like you're cooped up, you're in trouble for being out of the area, and you go through the thoughts, right? I know if I do those things, and then you list all the thoughts, and then when he gets to I can't stand it, you have him say the new thoughts. It's only a short amount of time. I don't want to go to jail, and I can do this. And I believe that people can change and probation can help. And then you ask the client, okay, now how do you feel after you say those things and believe those things? And Jim was able to identify that he felt calm, motivated, and in control. Well, right there is 2 ways and how to handle a situation, and you have the choice to do that. And so, like I said, with the iceberg, the clients are very visual, and when they see that they have a choice and nobody can make them do it but themselves, it's a pretty powerful message. So that would be one tool that we can use in our offices to address behaviors with clients. And that's the thinking report from Thinking for a Change. We also can do that in a number of different formats, depending upon how you think a client is going to receive it. Another option that we can use is a carry guide. And carry guides are going to be very similar to the problem solving, the social skills, the antisocial behavior, but we have them in individual guides, like individual worksheets that we can assign people. And it can come on their phone and their email, and they can fill it in on their smartphone, and it comes right to us. So this is an individual lesson, if you will. The client works through it before they get to an appointment, and then they get to the appointment, and then we review it and practice it together. The thing with the carry guides and the thinking reports, both we can do a lot of role playing, and we can flip the situations around, which gives them confidence to create that changed behavior in the community and go out into their family and go with their friends and try something different. Because again, it's their choice. And it's a way to reinforce what we're teaching them in programming. So the next slide is an example of a carry guide. And as I walk through it, you're going to see it's a thought, feeling, action link. The pieces are all there of a thinking report, but in color, this is much more of a visual, like people can do on their own and come back and do with us. So you'll see they walk through the thoughts, the feelings, the actions, what outcome did you get, and the reason that you got that. What alternative thinking could you get, and what would be the alternative outcomes if you changed or chose to think differently? And so that's the second option that we have. All of our staff have been trained in these carry guides, and like I said, we can use them in individual appointments as worksheets. We can assign them through the phone, through the email. We can move it electronically that way too. And then we have our newest COG program, Decision Points. Well, we do have Moving On too. We forgot to put that slide in here, but Moving On is very similar to Thinking for a Change, but just focused on females and high-risk females. And then our newest program is going to be Decision Points. Do you want me to keep going, or you want to? Okay. So in March, this is something we're pretty excited about. Decision Points is a thinking report on steroids across 25 different sessions. And basically, it's going to be an open-ended program that we can enter people through. We're going to have 6 staff trained in that, and one of the staff is going to be at the Kansas County Jail. So we'll be able to team resources with the jail and have it come. They can start in the jail, and then they can continue with their probation officers, or if they get in jail, they can address it with Allie and go back and forth. So we're hoping that that's going to be a great team. It's going to be for, again, the target population of our one-on-one interventions is for justice-involved individuals to reduce their criminal behavior and problematic, their thinking and recognizing risk in their thinking. The benefit to this Decision Points is that it is open-ended, and it is kind of a structured way for us to keep addressing that antisocial thinking. And then, of course, partnering with the jail is a big asset for us, too, because we have somewhat of a captive audience to start. And then I'll turn it over to Tammy to continue with dosage and intensity.
So we want to